Welcome back to the Open Up podcast with Lockie Samuel. This is episode 115 and guest number 115, Blase Grinner, my brother. Thank you for taking time to do this, man.
Yo. Thank you very much, man. It's so good. With my cousin bro, ready to jam. It's going to be nice and juicy, man. Thank you for having me.
Yes, definitely going to get a look into how this come about, which is interesting and good. I think good for men, especially with the work that you're doing with men.
Yeah.
But before that, let's go deep fairly quickly. Could you describe the way that you view yourself as a man and or human?
Yeah, man. So I would view myself now as a conscious man, an integrated conscious man, continually on a journey of bettering myself every single day. And as a conscious man, that means that I contribute to the people around me, my family, my community, and wholly and solely now have devoted that devotion is now towards men's work. Though giving back, I definitely know giving back in some way, shape or form, that's just my nature, man. And so, yeah, by conscious man, being consciously aware of my thoughts, speech, actions, and emotions, and taking full responsibility for them, man. So that's how I describe myself.
That's a pretty dope description. Is that something you practice often?
That's the first time I've said it like that, man. And I didn't know that you were going to ask that. And so it's nice to see that that's what's come out. It's been interesting. I've been writing content. I've rechanged my program and what I'm doing for men's work with my one-on-one stuff. And it's actually called Initiated. And so I've been looking through integration, conscious man, initiation, and rites of passages. And so, yeah, it's really nice to see that that's transpired through what we've just talked about then, man.
It's epic. Let's dive headfirst into, I guess, where everything began, childhood, and if you're comfortable walking us through what you went through throughout your childhood.
Yeah, 100%, man. And it is uncomfortable, though. I just want to highlight that with men's work, I feel it's really important that men need to feel and see that another man has walked in his shoes. Too often through my counselling and seeing psychologists, that it was just black and white, and they never actually spoke about their journey. Yes, it helped in a certain way for me to start talking, but what really shifted the needle for me was when men actually were able to mirror and reflect what happened and how they moved through stuff. So what you're doing with this podcast, bro, is like kudos to you. I really feel this is going to be the shift that the world needs. And so with that, when I was 7, I'm the eldest of 5 kids. When I was 7, it was the last time that my dad beat my mum. He was pretty violent, had really bad alcohol issues. And talking to him in the past couple of years, he's also divulged to me that he was really lonely. He was alone. I had no mates. And so, yeah, mum and dad were into it, and I'd had all my brothers and sisters under the bed. And being the eldest, I was trying to protect them as best as I could. And this was the first time in my life I can remember I actually stood up and said enough was enough. So I kicked in mum and dad's door, and they had there was a bit of wood there. And I just remember seeing there was blood on mum's face, and it was really confronting, like, fuck it. And yeah, so got the violence and the act to stop through using my voice as a young boy, as 7 years old. And mum bounced. Mum packed us all up. We had an old Chimera, an old Holden Chimera. She packed us all up in there. At that time, there was 4 kids, and we went and stayed at her best friend's place. So from there, we lived in housing commissions, man. So we grew up as the quote-unquote, the Aussie battler, bouncing in and out, housing commissions. And there was this park. There was a park. I was about 9 years old, man. There was this park behind this massive, huge allotment. And one of our family friends, he was older than me, about 10, 12 years old. I was only 9. And, yeah, we used to play together and stuff. And then there's one time we went down to the park, man, and he molested me. And, asked me to put my cock in his ass. He asked me to suck him off. And in my soul of my heart, I knew that this didn't feel right. But I went back into that same default of that young little boy that was scared and didn't know how to stop a tyrant, that didn't know how to use his voice, that didn't know how to set his boundaries. And I just allowed it to unfold. And I also allowed it to happen again, a second time. The second time, when I jumped the creek, I slipped over and I got a massive big scar on my leg, and that's what stopped it. And then we went back. I needed to get like 8 stitches. And from there, that was the thing that stopped it. Though it's played out on my life, man. This was a big thing that I've been working through as a conscious man now, of how that's played out. I'm a father of 2 boys. The eldest boy, Brett, is just turned 2. And before they were born, I questioned my sexuality because I'd had a penis in my ass. I'd done that to another boy as well. And I was really confronted with that because I was a footy player. I was a league star. Like, I was in the limelight, but I didn't know what my sexuality was. Like, was I bi? Was I straight? Was I gay? And then the other turmoil that this brought about, or the other piece of adversity, was that when my first son was born, I had these feelings of like that I was a pedophile. That is it okay for me to change his nappy? How am I going to be okay to see a little boy's penis? Even though he's my blood, I still had that come through me. And it was really confronting and challenging for me, especially to bring that up to my partner. Like, that for me was like, fuck, this is like a sign of weakness. I've been taught that this is weak, to be feeling like this and seeing like this. Though through the work that I've been doing with personal development and men's work, knew that, hey, this is just is, and this is something I need to work through and talk about. So firstly, I turned to men's groups. I turned to my mentors. I turned to my coaches, and got held by these men, and could explain and talk about all of my fear around this. And they normalized it. They said that they too had traumas as childhood, and that they had experienced this as well. Some of them had told me that they have little girls. So it was nice. It was really nice to feel that I wasn't alone through that. And so now it's amazing to be able to help other men go through those adversities of fatherhood and experiences of sexual trauma, and know that it doesn't define who we are as men. So yeah, man, that's a little piece of a little flash of my life, man, of childhood and in real time as well.
Knowing that you've done so much work and you're now helping other men, and knowing that you went through, I guess, the questioning of sexuality, and did you go through shame as well, like going through that whole process?
Yeah, man. So the biggest shame for me was that I still, to this day, haven't confronted that man.
Okay.
Boy. And so I feel the shame that I'm feeling is that I'm less of a man. I'm less of a man for not being able to stand up and voice and use my raw masculine power. And that has played out in a loop. And so this is one of the quests that I'm in at the moment, is to track this man down and just have a conversation. Not from blame, but from ownership, so that he doesn't have my power. And then that shame was interesting, how the rest of my life through puberty and then into young adolescence, how that shaped my perception of women. So that lack of power I had with that man, I would then be the dominator or the power in with women. So I objectified women. I did a lot of cheating on women so that I couldn't get hurt, so that I had always had the power because it had been taken away from me. And so it was interesting to see how that shame then turned into so much guilt and shame around what I was doing to other people, because morally, deep down, I knew that wasn't right, though didn't have the tools or the conscious awareness to actually work through that processes. And that played out for all of my life up until I actually faced off with it, which was only about 4 years ago, man. And yeah.
Walk me through that, bro, because I know like my journey, and my journey's nearly exactly the same as yours. And so like in getting to that moment, how do you give yourself permission as someone who has carried this guilt and shame, who has, I guess, behaved in a destructive and toxic way, how do you give yourself permission to then face off with that? Because I can imagine that's scary as fuck.
Yeah, man. So the very first thing was that I needed to consciously decide that I had enough was enough, that there was more to life than the way that I was living. I was very jealous. I was very insecure. I had poor self-worth. I was violent. I was drinking. I was turning to drugs, alcohol, porn, gambling. And that's not who I wanted to be. And so everything up until then was that, well, that's what got me where it was. And so I knew that something had to change. And so for the very first thing that had to change was me stop pointing out that way and pointing the finger in this way towards myself, and then start asking some really powerful questions. And I didn't know how to do that. I wasn't taught how to do that. I didn't know what personal development was. I didn't know what coaching or mentoring or men's work was. And I was very fortunate that my partner, my fiance now, she actually gifted me a ticket to the bridge.
Oh, man.
And the funniest thing is, man, is that at the time I was seeing the psychologist I just spoke about at the start of this podcast. We had separated because I'd just gone on a drug binge and I was sleeping on my mate's couch. And my psychologist, he said to me, I'm like, fuck this, dude. I'm not going. I'm not going to go with her. Like, why would I go with her? Like, so still blaming, still pointing outwards. And he's like, what's the best thing that could happen if you went? I'm like, fuck, man, I could be able to claim my life back. I could be able to change some stuff. And he goes, well, hold that as your intention and see what happens. If that's the best that could happen, like, let's see what happens. And then what happened was I met one of the most amazing mentors on the planet. And I met, I think there was like 60 other people in this room, men and women, that were had the same intention of bettering themselves and finding another way to live life. And that was enough to face off with what I needed to face off with. One, having a solid mentor, and two, having an army of people of like mind, so I didn't feel alone. It was the thing that really shifted the needle the most, man, for me, is that experience.
That's amazing, bro. There's a couple of things you brought up, and you mentioned alcohol and you were violent, and then, of course, like your dad being violent as well. Was there ever any shame around like exhibiting some of the same behaviors, and like were you actively trying to be the opposite?
Yeah, man. It's really funny. I've just written content for a new video around a people pleaser, and it's interesting that some Mr. Nice Guys or people pleasers, the reason they became that man was because their dad was violent, so they became the exact polar opposite. So I saw all that violence, and so I'd created a story at the age of 7 that a man using his power, using his hands, yelling, and using his raw masculine power was bad. It was so fucking bad. So anytime that I yelled, raised my voice, I would feel bad for doing that. The thing was, bro, though, I excelled in rugby league, and I would let all of that aggression out on the field. And the harder and the more aggressive I was, the more I got cheered on by my mum, by my brothers and sisters, by the team, by the coaches. And I captained every team I ever played in, man. Queensland, New Zealand, I was on NRL scholarship because of that aggression. Though it wasn't channeled, it was channeled. I physically was going on the field to hurt people, to physically hurt people. And I used to say, I can legally bash someone on the football field and not get in trouble. And so there was so much rage I was taking out. And then because of that, it felt good. I stopped playing football, but I still had that rage. I still had that anger. So I started using my fists. At age 18, got asked, I was in front of a judge, and he goes, you are sentenced to 3 years jail. I was just like, I was 18, bro. I was just like, what the fuck have I done?
Shit.
What have I done? And he said, suspended immediately. I didn't know what that meant. Though it meant I didn't actually have to serve time. I went with a probation officer. So that's when I bounced out of the neighbourhood I was in and moved to the sunny coast. though the rage and the guilt, it was still there, man. That anger was still there, and I didn't know how to process it. And so from like 18 to 27, that anger then got directed into other things like alcohol, drugs, porn, addiction through gambling. And so I was channeling all of this energy into things for short-term fixes because I didn't know how to face off or be with my anger. And then when men's work came around and I started looking at all of these times and all of these places in life that I really wanted to let all of that rage and anger out, like full white noise rage, but not hurt, like rather than inflicting it on other people, I was able to let this rage out in these workshops with men's work. And man, I was able to shift and release all of this anger. So now when stuff comes up and there's frustration, I have tools in my arsenal to allow me to process that rather than suppress it. Be able to process what's actually going on and examine where the frustration comes through. Allow that to dissipate out of the body so it's not stored in the body. But yeah, that took mentorship, man. It took me getting around other people that have actually shown me how to be with all of that.
That's awesome, bro. I've got a couple of things I want to touch on. Being someone who is young, who excels in their sport to the extent where they're captain of state and country, how do you then, or how did you manage the transition of that identity as an elite sports athlete to then who the fuck am I?
Yep. It's happened several times, man. This is an identity crisis. And everyone up until 4 years ago, I went on binges because it was like this death of like, who am I? I don't know who I am. 18 years old, my contract got ripped up. And it's just like, and I'm in front of a judge, like, who am I? Like, who am I? And so and I was a good boy because I had to be because of the probation. So I just did the right things. I was in that box. I was a nice guy, though behind everyone's back, just started numbing out with alcohol because I didn't know who I was. I didn't have mentors. And I was on the search for mentors. Next thing I find, this dude who was in the limelight, he was 27, owned a nightclub. So I'm like, oh, I want a mentor. I wanted someone older. I didn't have a father figure, so I attracted to him. So at the age of 20, I was actually managing a nightclub. So for 4 years, I had free alcohol, free drugs, women, like all of the limelight stuff. Like, this is what we want as young boys. Yet it was so hollow. I went through massive depression, huge anxiety. I had full anxiety and panic attacks out in public. I would isolate myself for like 4 or 5 days on end inside my house, just playing video games because I couldn't fathom being in front of people because of all the drugs and stuff I was putting into my body, because of the way that I was treating women, the things that I was doing. I had so much shame and guilt around that. I was having all of these panic attacks. And then that stopped. And so I kept looking for mentors. And so I went into construction. And then when I went into construction, I had some really beautiful mentors, older 60-year-old men that gave me some straight out wisdom, man. And it was through their pain, because two of these old fellas, man, they're both 60, and both of them said, hey, man, this is just a job. This is just a job. It's just a means to an end. The biggest commodity, the biggest value in life is family. He goes, one of them said to me, my daughter's about to turn 21. I don't even know her. I don't even know who she is, mate. Wow. This is just a job. So remember that. So I was very fortunate that I had a mentor that actually gave me some perspective on life. Because of that, I started questioning like what was going on with life, what was my direction. And then I started looking into vision. Like, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? So I started channeling my energy into construction, building my way up to run $140 million projects. Then to find this isn't really what I want to do either. And then that's when I went through this personal development phase, and this was really on my heart. And there's another identity crisis happened. So I'm like, cool, I'm going to do men's work. I'm going to start all this stuff. Quit a massive salary. I was on $150K a year, had a ute, free fuel, like the package is worth a couple $100K. And so I quit, launched a program, and it failed, man. I only had one person sign up for it. And I'd already worked out, if I get 10 people, that's this amount of money, I'll survive for three months, and then I'll do this, this, and this. But it didn't work. No one knew who I was. And so I'm like tail between my legs, went from a foreman on a job site, leader, to then back on a screed, working with
God.
creatures. So in that time, I'd started men's work. So I had a lot of fear, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt that I'd done all of this. I ruined my life. And so I talked about it for once. I actually talked about what was going on. And my mentor, and it was P, man, it was Preston. I'm like, hey, man, I'm feeling all of this stuff. And he's like, bro, you're so attached to how it has to look and you're comparing to others that you can have exactly what you want right now. To be a men's coach, you could still have a high visi on. And so ask powerful questions, get powerful answers. I asked myself, who would be the hardest man on the planet to coach? And I started thinking about all of the stereotypes that concreters had around them as a stereotype. And I'm like, well, collectively, the collective planet would say concreters would be the hardest men to coach. So I started coaching concreters, bro. Smoko sessions were like my one-on-one discovery calls, doing it all for free. And so the tradie talk around women and racism and all of this bullshit, that was irrelevant on any job site that I was on, man. We were talking about family, purpose, vision, values. Like concreters were telling me, hey, man, I don't really want to be doing this. I want to be a chef. And he goes, I've never told anyone that. Like that stuff, bro, was lighting me up. And so I started doing lives on video on job sites. And that's how it started. But I needed to go through these transitions. And so those identity crises were just allowing me to shed a skin. So I love the analogy of a snake, man, that we grow, but then those identity crises, we needed them to continue to grow, evolve, to continue to get bigger as a man, as a woman, but then we shed those skins, which is just an identity. It's just something that we've created for that pocket of time and that needed to let go. And then there's something greater waiting for us as we shed that skin. So yeah, man, it's
epic, man. I'm loving the energy and the passion. Hey, you can tell when someone's really authentically and genuinely passionate about what it is that they do. And I feel that energy oozing out of you, man.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. And man, I've looked into that, like, because passion, everyone says how much passion I have. And I feel I have that. With anything that I put my mind to, I have passion. And I also love bringing people together. And if I look at everything that we've spoken about, football, a nightclub, construction, men's work, has all had, I've been on purpose the whole time. Whether it was consciously or unconsciously, who I am as a man, as a soul on this planet, as an individual, has all had that through line of passion and bringing people together. But now it's doing it from a holistic way, a way of being of service, and it's not about me anymore. It's about outwards. So the finger went inwards to then go outwards. So yeah, thank you, bro.
Let's get on to what it is that you're doing now, the services you're offering, and how that impacts men.
Beautiful, man. So I have one-on-one coaching, and it used to be called the MindFit Gym, and I'm just transitioning it now into it's going to be called Initiated, because of what I've over the past 3 years with my clients. Majority of these men are in a job or a situation that they don't like, and they want to transition out of it and really start living a life of purpose, however that looks, whether it's as full-time or part-time. And so that it's initiation. It's a rite of passage that men have lost. So that Initiated is my one-on-one program. It goes for 3 months. From there, I also have another program, a 6-week online program. Actually launched, and the third round of it is launching in 11 days. And that's a 44-day accelerator. So what I found with why I created that one is that men have lost mojo, they've lost drive because they've just caught in this loop of Groundhog Day. They become fathers, they're in jobs, and that role of the provider is like really weighing men down, and they start to feel unmotivated. And because of that, a lot of stress, a lot of frustration comes in. And what we touched based on, man, around anger and frustration and how I used to take it out on people that I love. The 44-day accelerator is how to fast-track drive while minimizing stress, wholly and solely for men to become to get that oomph and that zest and that zing back for life. But this is a group program, and because why it's a group program is because men have lost community. A lot of men that are going through there's usually a spiritual awakening, or they've become consciously aware of, like, they're not pointing outwards, they're starting to point inwards. They start to let go of people in their life that aren't on the same trajectory. I love the analogy, man, of a tablecloth, that we are the center of the tablecloth. And as we start to rise that tablecloth, the people who are meant to be in our life, they'll rise with us. But the people that aren't will fall off the table. And that's what happens when we start to become more consciously aware. And so that's why a lot of men that have that there's a lot of fear with men of actually starting to live this purpose and follow their heart, because they're going to lose all that. Like, they may lose their mates that they have created for lifelong. So that's why it's a group program. And then my partner and I, we're in business together, and we have a company, and we've got some stuff for the tourism market, but the men's work side of it is that we have half-day adventures. So it's called Blokes Venture. So it's half-day monthly adventures for men, taking them outdoors, in nature, no phones, no reception, and doing some really cool adventurous stuff, fused with personal development and fused with men's work. And we have 8 different unique experiences, because men's work is so diverse that we can't do it all in one day. So every single one has a different theme. We teach different Indigenous cultures, rituals, and practices, because rites of passage is so important to me. Me being Māori, like, I was born in New Zealand, we teach them, like, a lot of Māori stuff around the hongi, the hongi, and it's really, man, that really lights my soul to go out in nature. I love adventure, man, and to fuse everything together is amazing. And then from that, also have a 3-day Blokes Venture, which is an actual rites of passage. Men come for 3 days out here on the sunny coast, and we go deep, man, really deep. So all my one-on-one clients that are part of Initiated, they get the Blokes Venture retreat as part of the package. Yeah, man. So that's the 4 things that I have at the moment. It's amazing, man. It's a really beautiful way to make a living.
You happy with what you're doing now?
Yeah, man. Yeah. I was talking to Preston and the men. It's like, okay, cool. At the moment, life is amazing. Family's taken care of. And there is this piece of me that wants to thrive, that wants to allow other people to thrive as well. And so the next evolution for myself would be to now start growing the business, impacting more people, allowing other men to come on board, other women to come on board, and actually start to live a life that they would like to, that is the same vision as what I have. And so, yeah, man, I'm very, very happy, very challenged, and very rewarding, man, because of, like, fatherhood, being in business with my partner. That's a whole different topic. But yeah, man, it's awesome, man. It's a beautiful thing.
Oh, man, it's beautiful, the example you're setting for men, and none represents that more than our conversation and the way you showed up to that and getting to this point, because there were two interviews that fell through, and just in that interaction, I got to see just how authentic and genuine you were, and that you were definitely coming from a place of love and from that heart center rather than any sort of ego. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, man. It's something that I've really worked a lot on, man. And it's around values. And so I believe values and vision are the 2 foundation blocks for masculinity, for manhood, for a man to be able to stand on his own 2 feet. And until a man knows his values, which is his honor code, how can he actually state exactly who he is on this planet? And it's not until our values are challenged that we're able to actually see that, yes, these are rock solid. So, yeah, there was a backwards and forwards with I didn't show up twice for our interview. And then the second time I questioned the way that we were doing it, the way that the scheduling was coming about. And I was very vigilant that I didn't blame you, and I referred to my values around integrity and time, also referred to around scheduling, and then offered I offered a solution I didn't say this is the way you should do it. It was like, hey, this could work. And so I really felt it was an invitation for both of us to grow as men, to pivot, because we got to a point of like about to walk away. I was like, hey, this is too hard. This isn't congruent. It's not working. We're not in sync with each other. Though we both were able to speak about our values, speak about our integrity, speak about how we show up in the world, and we're both able to accept each other, acknowledge each other, and they go, cool, let's have a compromise and let's have a look how we can make this work. And I believe that is what it means to be a conscious man. We were both ready to stand in our truth and actually miss out on something. Because this is what I feel so many men is people please and bend over backwards because of scarcity mentality. Oh, he's not going to like me. I'm not going to get that interview. I'm not going to get that money. I'm not going to be that I'm going to lose love. I'm going to lose a friend. And they renege and they recluse on their values and their honor code. And because men continue to do that, men's egos are diminished. And when men's egos diminish, they keep trend stacking bad behaviors and bad habits on top of each other and then turn back to old limiting ways, alcohol, drugs, porn, and avoidance. And so, yeah, man, I just wanted to definitely give you and I kudos for being able to speak from the heart because we know our values, because we know what our honor code is, reflected in such a way that wasn't blaming each other, but we're standing true and firm with what we believe in. And then, this is the biggest one, is to be able to listen to the other man's and hear what the other man's values were and take it on board, process it, and then renegotiate. Because that, a lot of the time, people will just be firm and then go, fuck you, I'm out, because they're not willing to listen to the other person's values or the other person's boundaries. But yeah, man, it was awesome for us to be able to listen and hear each other, not wrong each other. And here we are, my third time lucky. And we've actually learned a lot about business, back end, and we've been able to teach each other some stuff that we didn't know because we don't know what we don't know. So it's amazing, man. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and I just want to go explain that a little deeper in terms of how that come about. Like you reached out about being on the podcast and I was excited because I know who you are from P's work and the people around you over there on the East Coast. And, I was pumped. And then you, in the first one and the second one, you asked me to send you a Zoom link. And I was like, oh, shit, I've only ever done Skype. I should really learn how to use Zoom. But I didn't. It was me staying in my comfort zone and just choosing to ignore it and expecting you to show up at the time that we agreed, even though you'd asked for that. And so in that second one, when you didn't show up, knowing that I didn't send you a Zoom link, you were very forward in saying, hey, bro, I reached out and I asked you to send that. Like my calendar is pretty chock-a-block and I need that to keep my creative flow. So I don't need to divert energy from the task beforehand. And to be honest, man, if I'm being really honest with myself, I responded in a fairly, I feel anyway, aggressive and blaming way, just like not taking responsibility for my role and ignoring the Zoom stuff because it made me uncomfortable because it represented change. And so the reason this is happening, I believe, is because you showed up from heart and you, even though there was that sense of blame from me, you showed up and you just said, hey, accept that, honor that, but then you offered a solution like you said. So in those times, if most of the time men, when they're faced with that sort of aggression and blame, it'll just be walls up, defenses up, fuck you, this isn't happening. But you weren't that. And so I just want to honor you for standing in your values, being the man that you present yourself to be, and the man that is, I believe, helping men on the East Coast. So this has happened because you showed up that way in response to that message. So thank you, man.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for the whole transparency, man. That's another thing that men tend not to do is only say what They want other people to hear. A lot of the time, the men don't say the yucky stuff. Hence why I actually said the dude put his cock in my ass. He asked me to suck him off. That still has energy, still sticky, man. And then you just then saying like, yeah, I blame you, man. Like that ownership, man. That is true power. That there is true masculine power of being able to own our shit. And then from that place of ownership, man, we have our power. We can do what and be exactly who we're meant to be on this planet. So yeah, man, thank you very much. Yeah, it's an honor to be here, man. This has been a really amazing podcast, and a lot of men and women that hear this are going to learn and benefit from this.
Cool. A couple questions, bro, before we wrap up. Knowing everything that you've been through and knowing what you're doing now, what would you say the quality of your life is like now?
Oh, quality is phenomenal, man. Phenomenal. It's the two words I would describe my life right now is one, boundless, and abundant. And by boundless, I'm not restricted by anyone or anything other than my limiting beliefs. And so anytime that I have a block, anytime something's coming up, a challenge, I'm like, cool, how and why am I blocking this? Am I self-sabotaging? Do I not just know something? Do I need to get a coach? Is it my shit? Like, is it just a knowledge and wisdom thing? So yeah, and not being governed by other people anymore, knowing that I'm responsible for who I am. And the abundance, man, is like, it's this deep, deep trust, a deep faith, a deep happiness that I am so fucking taken care of, that my family's so taken care of, that I get to do everything in life that I want to do. Every single thing, man. Yes, it's fucking challenging. Yes, there's ups and downs, but I wouldn't have it any other way, man. So yeah, man. Thank you for asking.
That's cool. What are you most grateful for right now, bro?
Far now, bro. Far now. Family. I'm so grateful for that. They're my why. They're my drive. They're my biggest mirrors, my greatest teachers. I did a process, and we got asked would you die right now? And in this process, at the first time, I'm like, actually, you know what? Yes, I'm so good. I've lived my life. Fuck yes. And then I thought about it when I was sitting there. I'm like, fuck it. I put my hand back up. I'm like, actually, do you know what? I still want to be here because I want to experience fatherhood. And fucking like literally 6 months later, bro, my partner fell pregnant. And so yeah, man. Finally, like being a dad, like I've always wanted to be a dad, and to have two boys, it's just amazing, man. And then to meet my ride or die has been phenomenal. So yeah, far now that's the biggest thing I'm grateful for, man.
Oh, that's awesome, bro. Last one, if you had the chance to put a message on a billboard somewhere where you'd know thousands of people would see it every day, what would that message be?
The jester in me just wants to go like to some like funny stuff. But, I really love Oscar Wilde's quote, man, that falling in love with oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance. And then I would say, so look inwards, and then the billboard would be a mirror.
Nice. That's epic.
Yeah.
That's probably the most creative one I've had so far.
Yes. Creative in the building.
To wrap up, man, firstly, want to acknowledge you again for standing in your values, showing up from heart and allowing this to happen, because without you responding in that way, it definitely wouldn't have, because I was ready to just leave it and walk away. So thank you for that, first of all. But secondly, I want to acknowledge you for what you've been through, how you've turned that, I guess, pain to power and purpose, and now how you're positively impacting the men over there on the East Coast.
Thank you very much, man. And just for any man that's still here, still listening, we want to talk about that pain, man. And when we're in that pain, It's so fucking real. It's so raw, and it hurts. It really hurts. Though, while you're in that pain, if you can find a place in your heart, in your intuition, within your soul, to understand that this too shall pass, and that this pain will be your fuel to fuel your fire in some way, shape, or form in the future, it can make the burden that it seems, or the heaviness it seems, not so much. So all of that stuff that I've endured, all of the stuff that you've endured and men endured and humanity's endured, is now the fuel of why we're doing what we do for each individual. Yeah, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother. You have a good day, eh?
Awesome, legend.